Good evening. How are you? Well, Thomas Jefferson says we got 81 degrees. That's not bad. Humidity 72 and 6 miles an hour. And I can feel a very slight breeze today, so I guess it's true. For those who are keeping track, there are 65 days to the election, of a lifetime perhaps, in which we have the opportunity to lift ourselves up and move forward into the future with plans to make a difference, rather than defensive, rather than out of fear, rather than concern that the liberties that we so treasure will be lost. That's what's at stake. And I think because of that, the polls have shown vectors in the right direction. That is toward Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So here we are. The national poll has it at 47.1 for Kamala and 43.8 for Trump. Now, it's still within the statistical margin of possible error, which way it could go. But the thing that I've looked for since I was a youngster in New York is the drift or the vector or the change of the polls. And again, you can be surprised in the end, but we have been moving in a direction favorable to the Democratic candidates ever since Kamala was announced as the heir apparent to Joe Biden. Now, there's also another number that floats, and they've been looking at how the nation feels about Democrats in comparison to Republicans. And there's been a change in that as well, a shift toward the Democrats. And again, it's a close margin, but again, the vectors, that is the direction and the force of change, have been toward the Democrats. So it's presently 46.9 to 44.6 for the Republicans. That's the kind of number that you look at for the races, the political races we have down ticket. That is below the president, all the other races. Now, it is clear from history that the higher the mark of the presidential candidate in a presidential election year, the better down ticket races go, because it carries people down the ballot when they're checking off who they prefer. And so there's a lot at stake. I'm not saying not to give to the local candidates, to the contrary, but I'm saying that the better the top of the ticket does, the better other candidates go. I am a personal example of that. When I ran in 1984, Walter Mondale only carried Minnesota and D.C. Now, would I have won or whatever? Well, I was doing better a month out of the race. But as we got closer to the election day, it kept pounding. And so my view was that what happened at the top of the ticket concealed a multitude of my personal and political defects. I wasn't so jocular about it on that day, of course. I mean, you don't run for something like that hoping to lose. And I do think, and I didn't that day, I do think my life is better for not having won. I got to work on the Hill. I got to advise people. I had, the trust of members of Congress that I would not have had as just a congressman or if I went on from that without much seniority. So that's something to keep in mind when you're watching people you care about in the political arena. Now, what we have seen in recent days is the desperation of Trump, because what's on the table for him is it's not just about getting the power. It is he needs the power, he believes, to distort the system even more, to free him from prosecution, both on the criminal side and the civil side. In other words, he wants to manhandle the system even more than he already has by becoming president again and upending our democracy and any notion that approximates that all men are equal before the law. Because if there's anything from 2015 to now that we've learned, it is that America just does not operate that way. And we have to change that. And when I was interested in government and politics, and I can't say why except that I mentioned this before, the milieu in New York was about investigating corruption at the time, nursing homes, police, all sorts of things, and it fit my notion as a somewhat innocent as to what government is about and should be about. And by being active, you see things that teach you what's wrong and what needs to be done. So Trump is doing everything he can to avoid both the responsibility for what he did and to avoid that day of reckoning that will come if he doesn't win the election. Now, I think proof positive that Trump believes he's going to lose is Trump's national golf course in New Jersey. Next week, or this upcoming week, there's going to be somewhat of a rally there, and they're thinking about the 1,400 defendants who were charged for the coup attempt, the effort to overthrow the government and to install Trump as the winner of the 2020 election, though he lost it soundly. Now, there have been two stories going on. First of all, there is no difference of opinion that it's at Trump's New Jersey golf course. Secondly, it was said he and Rudy Giuliani would speak at this gala. He has since said, Trump, he will not be speaking at this gala. In terms of why we're having this, it's because, and this is a quote, the J6 defendants who have shown themselves to have incredible courage and sacrifice. Now, talk about upending. It's the second time I've used that word. Upending, third time. The law, the criminal law, for their efforts to successfully have a coup, to break in the windows, to be in the hallways. How can anyone who claims to believe in law and order take such a position? Well, if you're desperate, you don't want to go to jail, you want to have the power, you have evil things, from my perspective, that you still want to do, you want to win any way you can. So you'll take in an RFK Jr., you'll kiss somebody's ass, you'll say things you don't believe in. What do you think the thing at the Arlington National Cemetery was about? It was his notion of how he combats the sworn statement that he thought people in the military were suckers and losers. How do you get around that? Well, you pretend to give a damn about what happened when on Trump's timetable we seek to leave Afghanistan. And 13 soldiers died. Given the scope of the occupation and the unreliability of the government we were leaving behind, and ironically, the accommodation that some were glad to have us go and would try to avoid these kinds of terrible things. But Trump doesn't care about any of this. He knows that we care about it, but he doesn't. He only cares to move markers around a table to pretend to be one thing he is not, in order to be another that we know he is, which is a dictator in training. That's what he is. So what's going on? I've talked before about surfing, although I haven't done it since I was a youngster. But when you're at and I only did it on the East Coast, so don't imagine me in Hawaii or those waves in California. But even somebody at my amateurish level feels the tug on the toes in the water as you're floating, waiting for that wave. Well, you can feel the tug on the toes when they're having a gala like this at Trump's New Jersey golf course. What is going on? And this tug is going to build strength, especially as Trump loses more ground. Now, there's time. Anything else could happen. But this is certainly plan B, and he's not waiting until Election Day to put it in operation. So what does the gala really have to do with anything? It's to say, I got your back, all you people who were in the coup that failed. And I'm going to have your back if you're there again for me. And all those people who are not in jail and who weren't prosecuted, see what I'm prepared to do for those who are faithful and loyal to me. I have immunity. He didn't say this. You will have immunity as well. I will pardon those SOBs that stood by me when I sat in the lounge chair watching the violence happen on the Hill. I'll stand by you so that I can become president again, even though we all know by now it wasn't stolen from me. It's just that I want it. I want. Give it to me. I know I'm going to lose, and so I need your help, because it's the only way, you rabble, who can return me to the White House. Oh, but I thought it was just a demonstration. 140 police officers were assaulted on January the 6th. 5 people died that day. 4 police officers committed suicide. Trump did nothing. We had 1,424 defendants charged for what they did on that day. So this is what you have to keep in mind, that whatever Trump says is a manipulation. We can have no idea what he believes, but the one thing we know he believes is that he's got to win the election, and he'll say or do anything that's necessary to make that happen. Now, there's another guy like him, Netanyahu. Netanyahu doesn't care about the hostages. Netanyahu is a guy who is concerned about 2 things: keeping the power, not being thrown out of office, and beating Gaza. That's his objective, his military and political objective. And he wants to beat Hamas in Gaza so he can survive politically and move on. But Biden is talking to Qatar and Egypt because 6 hostages were found dead today, and there's an uproar in Israel that Netanyahu's steered this war into a dangerous place in which the hostages will all die or be killed in one way or the other. And they don't want that. And Biden is working on a take it or leave it deal with the pressure of Qatar and Egypt as allies in this endgame. Will it work? I don't know. But we're on the side of angels when we're fighting for peace. Ite in pace, go in peace. And that's what we need to do. And that's supposedly the objective of diplomacy, to avoid war. But Netanyahu finds diplomacy inconvenient for his march of death, for his war crimes. And we have to set the table back again, because otherwise we're going to watch Lebanon, Iran, Syria open up a war, a world war. So we have to be smarter about this. And we'll find support, not loyalty, but support. Because war is at the very least an inconvenient tragedy. So there's that. Now, Holly and I went to the Flicks today and saw an amazing thing. What's it called? Blink Twice, I think it is. It's amazing. You have to want to see a horror film. And maybe people didn't want to, because we were the only, well, there was one other couple in the entire theater in Maryland where we saw this. And then we got ourselves some vegetarian food in nearby Frederick. So we're back. I have some work to do, but I have to get in my walk. And I have to talk to my friends. Let them know what I think about the day's doings. I was soaking wet yesterday. It'll be 2 more days before those clothes dry and are clean. Got all sorts of mud and stuff like that. And the guy who stopped to ask me if I wanted a ride, I said no, I was having too much fun. So he laughed. So that's what I got for today. And I say goodbye to you in my cathedral of trees. And I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.